The key wasn't for a lockbox or a diary. It fit a padlock on a hatch, hidden beneath the rose bushes in my mother's perfect garden. The metal was freezing, even through my gloves, and it smelled of wet earth and something else, something metallic, like old pennies. When it clicked open, the sound was swallowed by the sudden stillness of the yard. A wave of stagnant, frigid air washed over me, carrying the scent of deep rot and damp stone. From the darkness below came a sound, a slow, wet, rhythmic drip, and then a whisper, so faint I thought it was the wind through the thorns. It wasn't the wind, it was my mother's voice, saying my name, a key that fit no lock in our home, concealed in the one place she believed I'd never search, within my father's urn. The air in the room grew thick, carrying the scent of aged wood and something faintly metallic, like old coins. My fingers traced the cold, intricate grooves of the key, its weight foreign and deliberate in my palm. A whisper of movement, like paper shifting in a distant drawer, echoed from the hall. But the house was empty. I'm Sarah Miller. This is the story I grew up with. Mark and Helen, high school sweethearts from Dayton, Ohio. He was a respected civil engineer. She was a beloved kindergarten teacher. They were perfect. The kind of parents who never argued, who held hands at every soccer game, who completed each other's thoughts. The host, adult Sarah, in her late 20s, steps into frame and lifts the object with deliberate care. She turns to the camera, her voice low and measured. "I know what you're thinking," she says, the words hanging in the air like a confession. "Nobody's that perfect, but I swear, they were." A faint tremor enters her voice as she adds, "My dad was my hero. My mother was my best friend." Their 25th anniversary celebration felt like a perfect Hollywood scene. 200 guests raised glasses to what they called enduring love. 6 months later, my father was gone. A sudden, massive heart attack. Our world was shattered. Helen stood elegant in black, her face a mask of stoic composure that seemed carved from stone. Beside her, Sarah wept openly, her sobs muffled by the damp air that carried the scent of wet earth and funeral flowers. "My mom?" Sarah whispered through her tears. "She was a pillar of strength. She was my anchor in that sea of grief, the only thing holding the pieces of me together." We shared that raw, hollow pain, mourning side by side in the quiet aftermath. To honor him, we planned to scatter his ashes at his favorite upstate fishing spot. But first, we had to transfer them from the formal urn into a simple scattering tube, a final, unsettling task. Her trembling hands passed me the cold, ornate urn. "You do it, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice thin with exhaustion. "It should be you." In the quiet gloom of her childhood living room, I carefully unlatched the metal lid. The seal released with a soft, gritty sigh, like something exhaling after being sealed for decades. A scent of old dust, and something faintly metallic, like dried flowers and cold iron, wafted upward. The air around the urn seemed to grow dense and still. My pulse hammered in my ears, a frantic counter-rhythm to the room's heavy silence. This was no simple container of ash. It felt like a sealed threshold, and I was about to cross it. Her hand descended into the cold container. Fingers met the sealed plastic bag holding the ashes. Then her fingertips brushed against something unexpected. Cold, metallic. The air around her grew heavy with the scent of old dust, and something faintly metallic. A jolt of primal awareness shot through her. This wasn't supposed to be here. My fingers scraped against the angular metal, pulling it free. The air grew heavy with the scent of old iron and damp earth. There was no label, no inscription, just cold, tarnished silver resting in my palm. A primal dread took hold as I realized this key was never meant to be found. Just a key. "Sarah." I called out to my mom. "What's this?" The moment she saw it in my hand, the color drained from her face. It was more than shock. A wave of ozone and old dust seemed to roll off the metal in my hand. Pure terror seized me as she snatched it away. Her voice dropped to a whisper, thick with forced nonchalance. A metallic scent, like old pennies and ozone, hung in the air. "It's nothing," she insisted, her fingers closing possessively around the relic. "Just an old souvenir. Just forget it." Her voice was a taut, unnatural wire. She never spoke to me like that. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and old rot, a sticky dread clinging to the stillness. Somewhere, water dripped with metronomic precision, each drop a cold whisper in the void. The next morning brought a fitis, family cold, and a canceled trip. But something else stirred in the fog of my memory. That key unlocked a door deep within my mind, revealing not the perfect facade I'd always known, but the hidden cracks beneath. Suddenly, I remembered things I'd buried long ago. A summer night when I was little. The air thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic. A primal dread took hold as those fragmented memories surfaced, each one more chilling than the last. I awoke to their vicious argument, a memory I'd buried because it felt so alien. The next morning, Mom had a bruise on her wrist she claimed came from gardening. Dad vanished for a sudden 3-day business trip. I became obsessed, searching the house at night, my flashlight beam slicing through the oppressive dark. As Mom slept, I searched frantically, that key clutched in my trembling hand. I tried it on every lock. The attic's rusted padlock, the old trunks, corroded clasps, the shed's stubborn deadbolt. Each failure brought a deeper sense of futility, the air growing thick with the scent of old dust and damp wood. Then, a memory surfaced, cold and sharp, the storage unit. Unit 214. My father had rented it years ago for his old project files. He'd taken me there once, a memory I'd completely forgotten until now. The air here is stale, carrying the scent of dust and something faintly metallic. My pulse quickens as I stand before the door, the cold metal handle radiating an unexpected chill. Sarah stood before the steel door of Unit 214, the key cold and heavy in her palm. She twisted it. The mechanism gave way with a deep, metallic clunk that echoed in the empty corridor. The door rolled upward, revealing the interior not with the expected scent of paper and dust, but with a faint, coppery tang. It wasn't full of files. The room held only a solitary, dust-caked filing cabinet and a small metal strongbox secured by a lock. The key slid into the strongbox's lock with a faint metallic rasp. A scent of aged paper and faint iron filled the stagnant air. The mechanism yielded with a dry, reluctant click. Inside lay 3 artifacts that seemed to suck the warmth from the room. A wedding ring that wasn't her father's, a faded photograph of her mother and a young man in an intimate pose, and a yellowed newspaper clipping from 2003. Sarah's voice fractured as she read the headline aloud. Local man still missing. Foul play suspected. The missing man was James Carter. The man in the photograph with her mother was James Carter. The connection was undeniable, a silent scream from the past. Her fingers, numb and cold, turned the ring. Inside the band, etched in fine script, were the initials, J.C. and H.M. Helen Miller, my mother. The kitchen confrontation. The newspaper article and ring lay between them like damning evidence. Helen's voice was calm, but unnervingly detached. The way someone speaks about a minor inconvenience rather than a life-shattering secret. The scent of cold coffee and old linoleum filled the space, making the air feel thick and stagnant. Her words were a quiet, final verdict in the silent house. You shouldn't have gone looking, Sarah. Sarah's voice trembled as she asked, "Who was he, Mom?" Who was James Carter? Helen's reply came slowly. The words weighted with decades of regret. Someone from a life before your father, she whispered, the air growing thick with unspoken history. A mistake. The final word hummed in the room like a cold, metallic scent of iron and decay. Sarah's voice cut through the stale air. A mistake who disappeared? Was Dad blackmailing you? Did he find out about your affair? Helen responded with a sharp, bitter laugh that held no warmth. An affair? Is that what you think this is? Helen rose and drifted to the garden window, her silhouette framed against the manicured rose beds outside. The scent of damp earth and cold roses seeped through the pane as she stared into the darkness. James wasn't my affair. He was my husband. My first husband. Sarah stumbled backward, her body slamming against the cold kitchen counter. Helen's voice dropped to a raw whisper, thick with the memory of old terror. Mark was my escape. James, he was pure violence. A monster. The night I finally decided to leave, he tried to kill me. Mark was there, dropping off blueprints. When the first scream tore through the quiet, the air grew thick with the scent of ozone and something faintly coppery, a metallic tang that clung to the back of his throat. A second, more guttural cry followed, a wet, tearing sound that bypassed thought and sparked a primal dread. His body moved before his mind could catch up, the blueprint tube falling from numb fingers as he charged toward the source. It was an accident. James fell, his skull cracking against the rough stone hearth with a sickening thud. The air thickened with the coppery scent of blood, warm and sticky as it pooled on the floorboards. Sarah. And you just buried him? Helen spun around, her eyes blazing with a desperate intensity. We panicked. Ooh, she hissed, the air thick with the scent of cold sweat and old fear. My word against a dead man's? I had bruises. Her voice dropped to a raw whisper, fingers unconsciously tracing a phantom ache on her arm. But he had a record of complaints from me. They'd have said I provoked him. Mark would have faced a manslaughter conviction, shattering our futures before they could even take shape. So we interred him beneath the damp, loamy soil of the garden behind the house. James and I rented. The scent of wet earth and decay clung to our clothes for days, a secret we could never wash away. That garden, once a place of simple life, became a tomb of our shared, unspoken horror. And we built a new life. A good life. A perfect life. For us, the air inside was thick with the scent of ozone and fresh paint. Our own private sanctuary. Every surface gleamed under soft lamplight. Every corner meticulously arranged. Every sound muffled by plush carpets. We had crafted our paradise, sealed away from the world, never noticing how the walls seemed to absorb all noise until only our breathing remained. Sarah, all of it, alive. Every whispered, I love you. Every anniversary toast. It was built on top of a grave. Helen. It was real, Sarah. Our love was genuine. But the terror forged an unbreakable bond between us. We preserved that key as a tangible warning, a stark reminder of the boundary we could never approach again. The air still carries the faint scent of ozone and decay from that night, a lingering presence that tightens the chest. Every whisper of the wind or distant footstep reignites that primal dread, holding us in its cold, sticky grasp of the secret that was ours alone, until Dad's heart attack. We put the key in with him. Why? Helen's voice was a desperate whisper. So the secret would die with him, and I could finally be free. Sarah's gaze shifted from her mother's haunted expression. It drifted out to the garden beyond the window, a beautiful, blooming rose garden that stood in stark, unsettling contrast to the confession hanging in the heavy air between them. In her mind's eye, the garden transforms, younger, vibrant, with a patch of freshly turned earth. Sarah's breath hitched, the damp air thick with the scent of turned soil and decay. A primal dread took hold as she whispered, "Fishing spot, the ashes we scattered last week." Helen's voice was a hollow echo. It was the only place he felt peaceful. It was what he wanted. Sarah's voice trembled as she retreated, the scent of damp earth clinging to the air around them. "You didn't," she whispered, the words catching in her throat. "Tell me you didn't scatter his ashes where you—" Helen's reply came as a low murmur, barely audible over the distant scratching of branches against stone. "It's over, Sarah. It's finally over." A sticky chill settled between them. "We're safe." I moved out that night. I haven't spoken to my mother since. The police have been notified about James Carter. They're excavating the garden of the house sold 15 years ago. My father's name will be posthumously dragged through the mud. That perfect marriage will become a true crime headline. I keep thinking about that key. My mother saw it as a lockbox, sealing the horror away forever. My father, I think he saw it as a shackle, a life sentence. He carried the weight of that secret every single day for 20 years. It was a damp, clinging presence, a stain on his soul that never faded. Perhaps his heart didn't simply fail. Perhaps it finally fractured under the burden of the lie. The final shot. An empty urn rests on a worn wooden table, dust motes dancing in a sliver of light. Beside it, a small, tarnished silver key gleams dully, holding a secret too heavy for its size. Sarah's voice, a haunted whisper, cuts through the stillness. "So, what's the truth? Was it murder? A cover-up? Or merely a tragic accident that two terrified souls transformed into a lifelong prison?" The damp air carried the faint, metallic scent of ozone, and the only sound was the steady drip of water from a rusted gutter. Primal dread took hold, freezing them in place as they stared at the unthinkable choice laid before them. The truth of that night remains locked away, a secret they will carry to their graves. The love story I cherished was a beautiful, haunted house. I was merely a child, raised in the room built directly over the grave. The air always carried the scent of damp earth and rusted iron. At night, I'd hear faint scratching from below and feel the floorboards shift as if something were turning in its sleep.
If the veil stirred, subscribe and meet the next encounter.